So the baseline assessment, what do you have? For this demonstration, we're going to use the language of the basic payment scheme. Just to outline the benefit of doing a baseline is, hopefully what we're going to show you is accessible. So fortunately, the Rural Payment Agency in England has unlocked and opened all of your field parcel data associated with your SBI number, so your single business identifier. I'm going to show you how you can use the Land app to download that. But now, using that data, you can create really accurate plans. So the mapping, because it's underpinned by Ordnance Survey, it's highly accurate, and you can go down to a square foot of information compared to what you can do on a paper map. And then third, as I mentioned, insight. We can, once we're demonstrating this in the tool, we can quickly understand how much land is left for cropping, for example, after I've completed my basic payment. So I'm going to flip over to the Land app. I've provided you with some guidance documents of how to register. It's just should take a matter of minutes, but if there's any issues, do get in touch with support@thelandapp.com. But once you create an account, the first thing you need to do is create a new map. So what I'm going to do is just demonstrate that process. I'm going to click this green new button at the top right hand side of your screen and give this a name. So this is my demo for Land Management 2.0. And I create an empty map. Once I've created an empty map, I'm met with an interactive base map, and by default is the OpenStreetMap, which is the free to use crowdsourcing base map. You can change that base map if you want. So we've got a number of different free and premium base maps that you can use. So for example, you can use the Bing imagery for free. And that then is a interactive map that you can scroll in and out of. There are also some freemium data layers. Freemium is just a combination of the word free and premium. That means that certain zoom resolutions it is free. You can see on the bottom of your screen with this Ordnance Survey map is free. But as I get into certain level of detail, say starting to see the definition on the buildings, that's when it moves to premium. Now, if you're just using the free product, you have to buy some credits. But for this demonstration, it's really not necessary to use that Ordnance Survey data. For this demonstration, I'm going to use Bing imagery. So following the guidance sheet, what I want to do is import from Rural Payment Agency, which is this button on the top left. And then within this pop-up screen, I want to type in my SBI number, which is a 9-digit code that is associated with your account with the Rural Payment Agency. And for this demonstration, I want to download my land cover, which is the recommended data set, which includes information about the land use, so where the woodland is, for example. And I also want to download my hedges data. You can also download land parcels if you want. That just shows you the total field boundary. So it doesn't break up a field that contains, say, 3 or 4 different land covers. It just has one field parcel per field. Then you hit import, and what that does is that goes and fetches your data from the Rural Payment Agency, and it will put your data on the interactive map. So you can see it's now zoomed over to my farm in Surrey, and each of those features are now clickable. You can now click on them, and by selecting them, not only does it highlight that field parcel, it also opens up this right-hand panel that shows you bits of data contained. So for example, this field parcel, the description is permanent grassland and the area is 13.69 hectares. Within the tool, you can move away from metric if you want, back to imperial, for example. Go to acres if that's what you prefer, or meters squared if we're going to get more detailed. But for this demonstration, I'm going to talk in hectares. Once you've downloaded your field parcel data, you'll notice that when you click on them, it has that land use description. And actually that description is what makes up your basic payment project. So the first step that I'm going to do is for baselining this farm is I'm going to create a new basic payment scheme project. So I'm going to hit this green button, and within the Land app, we've got many different templates. I want to select the basic payment scheme project. Just as a side note, this is really important in terms of templating, as I mentioned in that first section, which was those funders, say the RPA, want to receive data that's all following exactly the same template. So by everyone using the same basic payment scheme template means that the data they're receiving is consistent. So what I've done is I've clicked on basic payment scheme. I then can choose what I want to create my basic payment scheme from. And I want to just for first, create from land covers. So that's the information that contains where my woodland, permanent grassland, and arable land is. And I can give it a name. So at the moment it's just called basic payment scheme, but I'm going to call it farm A _ basic payment scheme. When you hit create project, what that does is the land app converts those blue parcels into styled parcels. So you'll realize that now these 3 fields have been given the permanent grassland color, which is green, because the RPA's land cover data told us that field parcel was permanent grassland. So by clicking on these different shapes, you can see that they're all permanent grassland, but they've all got different field numbers. There are some other features within my farm. So not only is my grassland being pulled out, but also there's blocks of woodland. So the woodland blocks have already been identified. Plus, you'll see running through this farm as well, I've got a track. And what your basic payment scheme is a current stock take of existing land use. So when you've downloaded this from the RPA, what you hope is that this BPS plan is as near correct as possible. What I'm going to do is just turn off some of the data layers. So you can turn off data layers in the left-hand panel by clicking the eye icon. And I just want to have a look at this farm quickly, but without actually having anything in the way. Last year, what actually happened is this temporary grass field has now had lucerne planted in it. I've actually acquired this woodland, plus there's a couple of hedgerows that were missing off my scheme that I'm going to add. So I'm going to show you now how to change, firstly, this field to lucerne, how to then add this woodland block as my part of my BPS application. And I'm also going to bring over the hedgerow data as well, so you can see what that looks like. So the first thing that you can do is assign fields that are incorrect with a new BPS code. And to do that, you click on the field parcel. So like I said, this is lucerne. You go to the change button at the top right-hand side of your screen. So you can see the right-hand panel. Click change, and you're met with a search bar and a drop-down list of every BPS code there are. So under arable land, arable crops for diversification, all of the BPS codes that are currently live within the basic payment scheme are accessible. What I do find is a lot easier though is to search for your keywords. So I want to search for lucerne, like LUC, and it's filtered to LG11. I wouldn't have known that's the BPS code, but I know that I'm looking for the lucerne type leguminous and nitrogen fixing crop. I then select that, and what that's done is that's assigned this large field that's kept the same description, so it still says it's permanent grassland according to the RPA. However, I've changed the attribution. So I've now attributed it to lucerne, and what's automatically happened is then changed the styling for me as well. So it's moved from grass to lucerne, and therefore it's gone from green to pink. And just to show you that again on another site, it might be that actually, let's demonstrate up here that this is not permanent grassland, this is temporary grassland. You can then click on a field parcel and type in temporary grassland. Now, the great thing about the land app is that you're not actually editing anything on the RPA. This is a static file that you can do whatever you want to. There's no mistakes to be made. So do just, especially during this practice session, use it just to play around with the data and use it to scenario plan rather than trying to be super accurate. But definitely, as you apply for basic payment, you need to ensure that there's accuracy there. So I did assign this to temporary grassland. Actually, I feel like I've made a mistake, so I'm going to click the undo button, and you'll notice that it's reverted back from that temporary grassland pale pink to the green. When you're mapping, what also you can do is you can actually multi-select 2 polygons. So say both of these were in spring barley. What you can do is hold shift on your keyboard, so the shift button, and while holding shift, select 2 or more polygons, like so, and you can deselect them again by clicking back on them. And then you can, again, just like I did for the lucerne, you can click the change button and assign the crop, spring barley. That multi-select also allows you to turn labels on. So if I want to turn, say, the areas for these 4 main fields, I can select those 4 main fields. And in the right-hand panel, I can toggle that eye icon. So that eye icon allows me to toggle on labels. And now you can see the area of these 4 main field types. Again, there's other labels that you can turn on the right-hand panel, do have a play. So for example, you can turn on the BPS code as well. While creating your baseline project, There's other things you can use the land app for. Firstly, for example, drawing on hedgerows. So there might be missing features. So what I've been doing up till now is just selecting and amending existing features that the RPA have provided us. However, there are, as we downloaded earlier, some hedgerow data as well. So what I want to do is hit create project. I want to create another basic payment scheme, and I'll explain why in a moment. But this time, instead of creating it from the land cover, I want to create it from the hedge control data. So I've clicked create hedge control. And what that's done, even though faintly, is drop some green lines on my maps, which are my hedgerows. So actually, my farm here is, got some hedgerows, and actually, I don't fully agree with where these hedgerows are. So I'm going to show you how to amend this data file. But what it does do is it gives you a nice template. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to rename on this left-hand side. So you can rename projects by hitting rename and going hedges BPS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now quickly show you how you can draw a new hedgerow. So actually, I've got a new hedgerow that follows this track in this right-hand field, easterly field, all the way down along this corner. So what you first need to do is select the polygon in question, like so. You then hit the draw button at the top left, and then you choose the type of feature you want to draw. So a hedgerow is a linear feature, so you need a line. But for example, and we'll show you during countryside stewardship, if you're drawing, say, a pond or a lapwing plot, you can use these other shapes. I'm going to select the line. I'm then going to, your cursor then has a blue dot following it. I'm then going to choose where I want that hedgerow to start, which is right on this corner here. And then actually what we've got built into the land app is kind of an automatic magnet. You can see it's trying to gain and gather sides of the polygons. But what I want it to do, and I haven't clicked since that first click, is I want to hover and drag where I want that hedge to go. And then I double click at the end and hit the finish button. And what that's done is that's drawn an exact line following the shape of that polygon. So from north to south and then heading east, I've drawn a line that's used the shape of that polygon to do so. I then can give it a hedge code. So half hedge is when you're just managing half of it, and adjacent hedges when you're managing both sides of it. So I've drawn one of my half hedges as well. So you can see that I now have got these hedgerows correct. And just to show you that again, but a bit quicker, there's also a hedgerow running along the side of this field. Select the polygon, hit draw, choose line, and then draw that hedgerow and double click and finish. And again, this is a half hedge, like so. Again, you can turn on different labels for hedgerows if you want as well. All the while that you've been drawing this, what the land app does is it's not only just a visual illustration, which is obviously the main exciting point, is actually the whole time you're drawing this, it's available as a table view. So when you click the three dots next to Farm A and click the table view, you are met with a spreadsheet which is broken down your farm row by row, feature by feature, containing not only the field number. So for example, in field number 9429, I've got two separate features. I've got my barley crop and I've got my half hedge. And then just scrolling across for other features within here, you've also got the total area available, SBI numbers, etc. And that template is exactly what the RPA wants from you for your BPS declaration. So you can download that. So you can hit the export to Excel button here, and that will just download this spreadsheet to your computer. One other little trick that is worth just putting in the demonstration is that at the moment, my hedges and my basic payment scheme are on two separate layers. And that's actually not what we want. We want them all to be on one basic payment layer. So what you want to do is click the three dots next to hedges. You want to select all the hedges. So select all the features within that map. So you can see it's selected all of those little points. I then want to right click and I want to copy those hedgerows from my existing hedgerow project to my Farm A basic payment scheme, and then hit copy to feature. And now actually all of my hedgerows are available within my Farm A basic payment scheme. So they're now on one data layer. And actually as they're on one data layer, I can actually delete that hedge data layer as well. So now I've got my basic payment scheme map. So this is kind of how you can use the land app to gather baseline information. There's other things you can do. So for example, there is actually, and we'll get onto this in countryside stewardship in a moment, but this field, you'll see that there's there's actually a little track running through here, and we've actually put in we're going to put a stewardship option along this edge. I think we're going to go for a beetle bank. But just to show you that other drawing tools that you can use on the Land app is you can split that field into two. So I can right click the split button, and then click once outside the polygon, and then again double click to finish on the other side. What that's done is that's split my Lucerne field into two separate shapes. And again, I can assign those shapes differently. They are both in Lucerne at the moment, though. So the final thing I wanted to show you for creating your baseline. So that's kind of how you can create a really basic payment scheme. So you assign the crops, you can draw on new features, assign those features. The other thing you may be interested in looking at is the data layers. So on the top right-hand side of your screen, we've got this button that allows you to choose from a list of open source data layers. So people might be familiar with Magic Map, and we've got a lot of the Magic Map data layers in. So for example, within designations, I can turn on the AOMB, and what that's done is that's basically dropped an overlay data layer for the AOMB. So actually where I'm based at the moment is in Surrey, and all of those data layers, you can click on them and gain further information. So if I wanted to go and read up a bit more about the Surrey Hills AOMB, I can by going into there. Other data layers, just to make you aware of, there's some good data layers on designations. So for example, our little farm here has a triple SI that runs through the south of it. So you can see that this whole field is a triple SI, which is going to obviously impact our countryside stewardship options. And just make note of that. Plus, there's other quite exciting data layers that do have a play and turn some of them on. Some of them are national, and some of them are for UK wide. So this is the radon data set, for example. Once you've created your baseline and you've had a look at the data layers and you've started to identify what you've got, that puts you in a really good position to start thinking about the future, which is creating a land management plan using the countryside stewardship template.